Welcome to the theater, everyone. My name is Dannii Cohen. Every week, I bring you songs from the history of musical theater, plus the stories behind this music, with a special guest. This is Behind the Mirror of Music on No Barriers Radio. And this week's guest on my show has produced a musical about a young Jewish girl who has become synonymous with World War II, Anne Frank. After a song from the musical, David Serero, producer and performer, will tell us all about the production and why he felt it had to be made. Now welcome, producer and performer David Serero.
How are you, Dannii?
Good.
It's such a thrill, such an honor to be with you today. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for joining. This week your production of Anne Frank, a musical, opens. Could you tell me about the show?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, my dear Dannii, I want to thank you for the opportunity of having me on your wonderful show. And I really appreciate it. And I watch all the stuff you do. So it's people like you who give me the desire to always be better in any off-Broadway production. So thank you. So Anne Frank musical is a beautiful musical written by my dear friend Jean-Pierre Dida. Originally, it's a French musical. So it's about the life of Anne Frank. It's not an adaptation of the diary of Anne Frank. It's really the life of Anne Frank, because she had a very important life that needs to be told. And around her life, there were many things like D-Day, like the Nazis, like Auschwitz, like how was life before the Nazis. You know, it shows a lot of very important things, including the dreams of Anne, which are the dreams of a lot of teenagers. And as we see her reality throughout the show, we understand that we are all Anne Frank, because we have everything that we can connect to her dreams and her desire. This musical, I brought it in September 2019, and it was like sold out. It went like crazy, standing ovation every night. It was like a big success. And then I brought it back in 2020 in New York, and the day of the premiere was the day that it was the official shutdown from COVID. So I was not able to bring it back. And I think I waited the right time to bring it now, right after the Jewish holidays, to bring this important story that is not just, of course, it's a Jewish story, but it's really a universal story, because it shows courage and solidarity and humankind and sacrifice. So we all connect to it. And the music, expresses things that words alone cannot express. So a lot of people could be reluctant when they hear a musical about Anne Frank. What are you talking about? But actually, a musical doesn't have to be joyful, doesn't have to be happy. It can be a musical about a sad subject, even though and we know it from the diary of Anne Frank, that throughout nearly 3 years that the Franks were hiding in the attic, they didn't cry during 3 years. There were moments where they were a little bit joyful when they were reading the magazines. There were some arguments, things like that. And all of that is reflected beautifully in the show. And all the characters, really what I wanted to do is to really bring a theatrical approach to all of these characters. And I'm so happy of the work that I did in 2019, not just to bring the show as in the tradition, in the literature, in the grammar of the big classics of American musical theater, but also I was able to bring the vocal colors that we see in American musical theater, which were not so much in the French version. But I wanted to bring this, and then at the end, I have a product, if I may call it, that is at the crossroad of a musical theater, golden age music, mixed with a tiny bit of jazz there and there, with Fiddler on the Roof colors, with oratorio, with opera, and there is not a single dry eye at the end of the production and the performance, and even me as the performer, because I'm playing Otto Frank also in it, and as the director is I never cried that much in rehearsal. So it's really a beautiful adventure.
Can you tell who is in the cast, who's playing Anne and the other characters?
Absolutely. Well, I'm playing Otto Frank, so is the father of Anne Frank. He's the only one who came back alive when the Franks were deported. There is Anne Frank that is played by Zoe Berger, who was a big name, I should say, with Nickelodeon television. She did 80 episodes in a TV series back then called Every Which Way. I like that she has the youth and the energy of acting. You know, then after I have a phenomenal cast. I have Kelly Fuller, who is playing Peter. I have a wonderful guy named Marco Dumanchik, who plays Herman Van Pels, who is a very tall guy. Madison Merlanti, who is playing Meep. I have Yarden Bars, Margot, Paloma Eisenberg as Edith Frank. Fritz Pfeiffer is played by Aaron Penzel. And I have a narrator also that tells the play because we start the show in 2023. And then there is a travel back in time on and off. So that's why it is very interesting. And this is Alexander Ulian. And I have also amazing soloists. They're also understudies, but they are doing a lot. And I have wonderful Liza Susanna, who is absolutely wonderful. I have Alina Garcia, who is just mind-blowing with her technique, with her intelligence. And I have also Stephen J. Harris, who is also understudying some part. And I have pianist Benjamin Baladbat and wonderful cellist named E. Zoe Hassman and Diana Golden. So plus technicians, because we project things also. My poor self directing all of that, you know, directing and producing all of that. But it's really a pleasure. And you in the audience, I hope, you know.
Your Sunday trip to the theater with Dannii Cohen on No Barriers Radio.
Edith, everything will be fine, I promise. Look, Stalingrad has been recaptured. It's a sign. Soon Hitler will lose the war, and everything will be back to normal. I promise you, Edith.
You forget all the things I have loved in memory of all the things I've lost, remembering that freedom has a cost.
To forget all these words that we heard, and all these thoughts that we'll one day have to erase, for they're too hard for us to face.
Fall moves along, the wind is cold, the leaves are gone, and I see tears running down your face to your lips that I once loved to embrace.
Although poetry can bring us peace and harmony, they seem to put me to such a place where I need to escape before it is too late.
You forget all the things I have loved
in memory of all the things I've lost, remembering that freedom has a cost. To forget all these words that we heard, and all these thoughts that we'll one day have to erase, for they're too hard for us to face.
Dream that an angel will bring our passion back to life, and that I am loving you all the same, and that love is to me nothing more but a game.
Look, the moon is the same one we knew when we were blending in together as one, and our dream will come true. Every
with To Forget from Anne Frank, a musical. And with me is my guest, David Serero.
Well, I started in Paris, and then I moved to New York when I was 16 the first time, moved by myself, and then went back and forth between Paris and New York, few months in New York, few months in Paris, and then at the age of 19, I moved to New York and, did theater, study, and started to put my first plays, my first shows, concerts with actors from the school I was in, rented theaters, working in restaurants to pay for all of that. And I discovered opera. People told me I have a voice for opera. So I did a lot of opera, then went to Russia in St. Petersburg, where I studied at the Mariinsky Theater. And from there, followed a nice career in Europe and also in the US and mostly in opera. And then step by step, desire to produce and to create and innovate in the way I wanted to bring opera and the way I wanted to bring shows. And right away, my signature, which is still applicable to this day, where I would take a material, I will rewrite it, I will adapt it, like taking a Shakespeare classic and make it Jewish, or make a musical simply about it, or take a play and add music around it, like I did with The Merchant of Venice, where I did classic Jewish song of the era, this kind of stuff. So it was my signature to take this classic, adapt it to make it younger, fresher, but also to do the role in it and also to direct and produce it and taking care of the whole aspect. I was like a one-man company and doing it all, and started from playing in basements to even stadium, and that worked pretty well. And then started for the last 10 years to be a little bit more involved in the US. And for example, in Morocco, I have created the first national opera company in partnership with the Moroccan government. So that's a big achievement, and it's the first time that a civilian creates a national opera company. So that meant a lot for me, and just following the destiny, the path of bringing now, French musicals to the US, but also bringing American musicals to France, and writing now my own plays, which are opening soon. And for the last, I would say, 4 years, I started to direct and produce my own movies. So I was acting as an actor in movies before, but now I started to direct them. I did one about a fashion designer named Eli Tahari, which was a big success. And from that movie, I got 12 more movies. What I learned as directing movies, I applied it when I direct musicals. So the visual aspect changed, the way the actors are acting, also on the close-ups, not just from the point of view from the last seat of the theater. But that also definitely changed my way of bringing things. But I always go back to my love. And I want to tell you, my dear Dannii, that the first musical I saw in my life was The Phantom of the Opera. And I know you're the big specialist. And one of the first Broadway songs I learned, as a matter of fact, was Music of the Night. So I started with the easiest thing. And I think I'm the only one who sang The Phantom of the Opera at the Paris Opera, the Garnier Opera. There was a bank who did a big gala. They privatized the whole thing, and they hired me to play the Phantom in it. So it was, I know you're a specialist, a big fan of the Phantom, so I wanted to squeeze you that info,
Time sharpens, heightens each sensation. Darkness stirs, and wakes imagination. Silently the sand sees abandoned fancy. Slowly change. floating forward, sweet intoxication, touch me, trust me, savor each sensation, let the dream begin, let your darkest side give in to the power of the music that I write, the power of the music on the You alone can make my soul take flight. Help me make the music of the
You are listening to Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen on No Barriers Radio. You just heard David Serero with Music of the Night from The Phantom of the Opera. Tomorrow marks 37 years of Phantom, which we'll be celebrating later on in this episode. Now, back to our guest, David Serero.
One of your biggest roles in France was Don Quixote in Man of La Mancha.
Don Quixote from Man of La Mancha was really a dream for me because it's one of these lead roles for baritone, because a lot of them are for tenors or you're playing the bad guy. So this one is really heroic, and it was really one of my favorite roles. First time I played it was 12 years ago, I think, and it was in Paris, and I produced it, not directed, but produced it. I had the idea of putting it together in a new version, and it was really extraordinary. One of the most beautiful thing I've done. And this character brought me so much, and I learned every time I play a different role. I play, over 50 lead theatrical roles, such as, whether it's Shakespeare, musicals, etc. And I always took from the role for me in my personal life. Of course, you put a little bit of yourself in the role. I wanted to take from the role. And that role taught me so much about not being afraid of saying your vision of the word and believing in the good of people. And it might sound, romantic like this, but it really is something when you apply it every day. And that was one of my favorite role. And I had a phenomenal cast with a big star, Jean Manson, who is American originally, and she moved to France, I think 40 years ago, if not more. And she's a big star. She sold, 40 million albums in France and rest of the world. And she played Aldonza, which she played 30 years before that, when she just got in France. So really extraordinary. Man of La Mancha is one of the most beautiful, memorable musical. And I thank the authors who gave me the rights to do it. So
You also did a production of Cyrano. Was it one of your own?
absolutely. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, it was Cyrano. I played it in Paris a few times in French, is part of the French patrimoine, we say it's part of the really French history. It's that playing. It's French in all the way. And in America, I wanted to bring it, but I never found really a good translation, a good adaptation, because I have in my head the French rhythm, the rhymes. There are rhymes which are part of the musicality of the play, and I thought that was important to have it reflected. So not only I did a new translation, but I did a new adaptation that came back really from the origin French book, because a lot of translations I read were adaptation of, so we were losing really the sense, really didn't mean anything. So I had to go back, and not only I translated it, I adapted it, but I made it, I made it my way a little bit. I added jokes, I added comedy, a little bit more comedy, and I added music around it, which was absolutely beautiful moment.
What are some of your favorite productions to create or to play?
If I tell you that this is my next one, what would you say? It's always like that,
Yes.
I am proud of every single production I've done. Of course, when you start, you don't know, you don't have the money, you don't have the experience, you're afraid to say to the technician, please put less light or more light at that moment, etc., etc. One thing that I'm not afraid anymore is really, really to search the best cast and to really work with the cast individually to make them grow, because I can assure you they're not the same on the first day of rehearsal than on the last, not just last day of rehearsal, but the last show. Because every show I film them, after each show I write notes that I give before the next show. So I'm mostly proud that I've been doing that for every single show for at least the last 13, 15 years almost. And the more it goes, the more I'm more into details, especially now we film a lot of the theater, which is good because then your work, can travel. I have television in Pakistan who broadcast one of my show. I would have never had that before. I would have never had the opportunity to have me bringing all my cast and all of that to travel to Pakistan to play. So the fact that it's just a file that can travel, I think this is wonderful, and we have to have that. My show played in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, in festivals, and I'm very, very happy of that. I will say my favorite roles is Don Quixote, is Cyrano, is Othello, is Shylock from The Merchant of Venice, and Otto Frank, of course. These are really, really roles that I can say I nailed them down. Like I really did something special on it that was not necessarily done before. That's what I'm happy about. But of course, done roles like Richard III. I don't think I changed the game by doing Richard III. But I'm happy I did it. But definitely for whether it was Othello, whether it was Merchant of Venice or Cyrano or Moses from the Ten Commandments, all these roles, they live in me every day. It's like an old friend who is always with you, they're right around the corner.
Your Sunday trip to the theater with Dannii Cohen on No Barriers Radio. to Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen on No Barriers Radio. You just heard my guest David Serero with I Don Quixote from Man of La Mancha. Now, David,
What are some of your favorite stage memories?
Oh, myself, I'm thinking about now, I don't know why, but I'm thinking about opening night of Anne Frank. When you have the Bravo, you are backstage, and then you come one by one and you bow and etc. And I will never forget I was backstage. I was the last one to come because I'm Otto, and there was Anne right after me. And the surprise, not the surprise, but the shock to arrive on stage and see every single member of the audience standing up and applauding, and most of them crying, and all of that. That was really a beautiful memory. But I lived it when I did Moses from the Ten Commandments and so on before. Yeah, the Man of La Mancha also. But I would say every stage memory is exciting if you know how to learn from it and to celebrate it. Like when I'm on stage, I celebrate the fact that I am allowed to be on stage, to exist on stage. And I can't wait you to come to see Anne Frank. We're opening October 15th, and we're going to play. We have 10 performances. First one is October 11th. It's a preview. We have a beautiful cast, and I love them to death, and we're going to give you a great show. And my dear friend Jean-Pierre Dida is coming also, the composer. So we're gonna have a blast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, my dear Dannii. God bless you, my dear. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
my interview with David Serero on Anne Frank a Musical, which will open on October 11 at the Actors Temple Theatre in New York. You are listening to Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen on No Barriers Radio.